completely uninhabited, an entire middle class on the verge of financial collapse, one of the biggest developers in the entire world unable to repay any of its debts. This isn't some future dystopia, this is the current situation happening right now in China. Most of us were around for the 2008 housing market crash here in the United States, but the current situation in China is probably even worse. As Daisuke Wakabayashi, an Asian business correspondent for the New York Times, wrote in his 2022 article, real estate accounts for roughly 70% of middle-class wealth in China. Having seen the effects of a housing bubble firsthand, this is a topic I've been following closely for some time, and unfortunately, my research on the topic has confirmed the worst. The housing market in China is in crisis. Today, we'll touch on the housing bubble that has been brewing for 2 decades, the devastating effects of the bubble, and how the bubble has slowly begun to burst. First, we'll talk about the Chinese housing bubble. So, what is a bubble? A bubble is a market state where real estate is typically regarded as being overvalued. Typically, this means there is too much real estate at too high of a price and nowhere near enough demand for it. This leads to more investment because of the high value, creating an artificial demand despite there being no actual need for homes. China's situation is a little unique because of its economy. At the turn of the century, lower-class Chinese workers began to move into larger cities in attempts to create a life for them and their families. This newer middle class, of course, wanted to then protect its assets. There's no reliable stock market in China due to different government regulations, which means that there is no access to shares or index funds for the middle class to put their wealth into. This leads that property becomes the most effective way to protect one's wealth. Of course, property prices began to climb because of this, because everyone had the same idea. This climb in prices didn't just affect consumers, however. The effects of this bubble are devastating the entire market system. Houses in China are unique because they're actually sold before they're built. Developers have continued selling houses to consumers, despite there being no indication that people actually want to live in them. This has not stopped developers from building houses, however. This has led to entire city metros being built with absolutely no inhabitants. Kangbashi was a city originally designed in the early 2000s to house 1 million people. This number was eventually scaled back to 300,000. But according to Business Insider Shanghai Bureau Chief Lina Batarig in a 2021 article, only 100,000 people currently live there. Imagine you're driving down a densely packed neighborhood. There are houses on both sides of you, as far as the eye can see. But as you get a closer look, only 1 in 3 of these houses actually has a resident. The busiest highways are completely empty during rush hour. This is the current situation in China, but on the scale the size of Manhattan. Because prices have only been climbing for the last 20 years, developers have been incentivized to create more supply. If housing prices only go up, you might as well try to be the leading supplier in housing. This has led to them borrowing on cheap credit, promising to repay banks once they get their mortgages from consumers. Housing prices have stopped rising, however, leading to developer panic because they no longer have the funds to keep building. Crisis is finally striking, and it's leading to catastrophic, yet sadly predictable results. The bubble is finally bursting. Evergrande, one of the largest developers both in China and the entire world, may have been hit the hardest by this whole disaster. According to a 2022 BBC article, the company has over $300 billion in unpaid liabilities, and it missed a crucial offshore payment deadline last December. Its shares have fallen over 75% in the last year, and it's been restricted on all of its trading privileges. Evergrande has put a halt on most construction projects. According to Shanghai correspondent Thomas Hale's 2022 article in Financial Times, the company claims that it will not proceed with the fire sale, usually a sign that the company is on its way out. Despite this, many top executives at the company have resigned, and it's likely that without a major government bailout, the company is doomed to fail. With finances in such limbo within Evergrande's construction projects, effects on both consumers and banks has been absolutely devastating. Andy Li is a middle-class Chinese man. 3 years ago, in 2019, he spent $150,000 for a home for him and his family. He has been paying his mortgage monthly for 3 years. In February of 2022, this year, 1 month before the scheduled completion date of his home, Li learned that progress on his home had been halted some time ago. In an interview for the aforementioned 2022 New York Times article by Asian business correspondent Daisuke Wakabayashi, Li revealed that he has had no correspondence on where his money is or what progress on his home will look like. Li, along with hundreds of thousands of Chinese middle-class workers with stories just like his, have made the collective decision to boycott until a solution is proposed or there's some info on the whereabouts of their money. Boycotts like these have made the situations worse in companies like Evergrande because they now have no source of income to continue building projects. Because so much of wealth in China is tied up in property, this has led to widespread financial ruin. In conclusion, this is a crisis that has been brewing for a long time. Today, we talked about the bubble that's been brewing, why it's been brewing, and its devastating effects on the economy. The story in China is one of hubris and short-sightedness on behalf of consumers, developers, and banks. Arrogance in their system has led to widespread financial chaos. People felt safe in the large system that China provided and refused to look at the bigger picture. But if those in positions of power had taken a step back, they surely would have realized that nothing is too big to fail.